people struggle to get your why. Why do you get out of bed in the morning? There's a lot of different things. If you can't define your why in anything you're doing on a daily basis, how are you going to manage a business? How are you going to try to figure out what you want from customers? How are you going to try to figure out what I wanted from soldiers? If I didn't know the why.
Who are you? You're in my garage.
I'm in your garage. Geez.
Yeah.
I mean so we've known each other for going on 20 plus years, and
20 something years all day long, right?
High school.
Long. I met you in middle school, maybe.
Yep, middle school, high school, and then
longer than 20 years.
Yep. Then my dumb ass went in the military, and then kind of was gone for 20 years, and did my thing as you grew your thing, and kind of reconnected when I was home on leave getting my truck fixed.
Yeah,
which was that's a story in itself. Then retired, and then kind of reconnected, and kind of been moving forward ever since, and doing projects here and there with you, and now kind of moving even further down the rabbit hole with you, and doing even bigger projects. So,
oh my goodness! So today we're here with Bryan Miles. Bryan, we've known each other since middle school, and you are a retired military or a military veteran.
Yeah, so I was in the military. I was in the Army for 20 years. Joined in September of 2000. So before 9/11, all that happened. A year later, next thing I know, I'm shipping off to Afghanistan for my first deployment, one of 4. And I was a flight paramedic, or I was a ground medic, I should say, for the first 8 years of my career. And then to advance my career, I wanted to go on the flight side, so flying on the Blackhawks, being the medic in the back of those, getting knee deep in the shit, and kind of running my own show, as it were. And then became a senior leader. I retired as a sergeant.
What's a senior leader for those that don't know?
So I became the highest rank I achieved was Sergeant First Class, which is an E7. It's an enlisted rank, and that means I was, at the time of retirement, I was a platoon sergeant. I was in charge of 21 other soldiers. That included pilots, mechanics, other medics. And then at one time for a year, I was a first sergeant of a Medevac company, that's myself and my company commander, and then 119 other people below us. So that's 5 platoons of 3 Blackhawks per platoon, so 15 aircraft. Helped my company commander, manage his property book, which is all your equipment that falls under his command. And that property book, probably just over $1 billion worth of equipment.
With a B?
$1 billion.
$1 billion worth of equipment. So you have a lot of leadership experience.
A lot of leadership experience. I became a non-commissioned officer in 2005. So non-commissioned officers, that's when you become in charge of other soldiers. So it's kind of funny how the military works. You could have me at 22 years old as a non-commissioned officer, and in charge of a 26-year-old private. And they're asking you for life lessons and how to navigate life, and you're just trying to figure out life too. Figuring out married couples coming to you asking you for advice, and you're not even married. You're just out doing your thing as a single guy bouncing around whatever duty station you're at.
Yeah.
So it was a challenging time, but it all came back to a thought process of leadership, and came back to thought processes of looking at other leaders and mentors that I had throughout my career. And whether that be looking up from, sergeant, which is an E5, all the way up to my sergeant major, which is an E9, or just another peer. And sometimes your leadership abilities don't even come from seniors. It could be somebody below you. Just because.
How do you mean? What do you mean by that? How do you learn from people?
So from learning from other people, you have to be able to have humility. You have to be able to know that you may be the senior person in the room, but doesn't mean you're the smartest person in the room. Good ideas come from the lowest person in the room all the way to the highest. And sometimes people get stuck on, well, this is the way we've always done it. And that's a deadly trap to go down. Because if that's the way you've always done it, you're going to get stuck in the position of mediocrity. And your leadership style is just going to be flat. So what I mean by that, you're not going to show growth. You're not going to show growth potential for those junior soldiers that you're in charge of, bringing them letting them have the free thought and encouraging them to have the free thought to bring up ideas. Not every idea is going to work, but you mentor them on that. Hey, this is why this, X, Y, and Z of why this wouldn't work. Or, hey, this is a great idea. Let's try to implement it. See how it goes. Give it a 30-day trial or whatever the case may be, depending on what you're doing. But you have to give them some onus onto them so they feel like they're a part of the team, not just there.
Would you consider that like buy-in? Like you want their buy-in essentially?
Absolutely. Yeah. Exactly. That'd be the best way,
Yeah.
a good way to say it. You want their buy-in, whether, and buy-in comes in many different forms. Thought, using them as a body, as, hey, I need you to do this task, maybe physically demanding, but they're getting that buy-in. They're getting that, hey, that tangible thing. This is what I'm seeing, the change in, from, and I'll use a platoon. So a platoon, 21 people-ish. You see the change within the platoon. Hey, we needed this supply done to help our mission to make sure our aircraft get off on time. If you see that from the lowest level all the way through mission completion, you can see the change in the people. But if they don't know the why, and that's a big thing that I learned growing up throughout the military, and the military changed. When I was a junior soldier, I was just told to shut the fuck up, move out, and go do what you got to do. You didn't ask questions. You just, Roger, move out. You're just basically a robot, just doing whatever.
And I find that a lot of people manage their business that way still. Like even when we were younger, before you went in the military, like that would be kind of the management style of the people that we learned from. Like you knew that you did a good job because you didn't get fired or called a moron that week.
And you got a paycheck. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
You didn't have, you didn't ask questions. So growing up and then seeing the change through the soldiers that are coming up, and especially today's kids, they're kids to us now, but seeing the change in what technology has brought to their mindset of how they see things, they need to know the why. They have to know the why of what is the purpose. What is my purpose here besides just collecting an hourly wage or a salary? They have to know. And I think that helps them motivate to do a better job because they want to see that end progress of what they created.
When we start working with a new company, one of the first things that we do is we make people define what their why is. Mm-hmm. Why in the world? Why the fuck are you doing this?
Right.
Like you have to have that because not every day is going to be good. And then we make them, I say make, but we get them to give us what their goals are, right? Like 1, 3, 5, and 1, 3, 5 personal and professional goals. They're super important.
Absolutely.
And the reason that I think they're super important is because that is going to give you that's your target.
Yep.
That's where you're going, and so I guess I kind of have a couple questions for you because one of the things that we struggle with regularly is getting people to define their why, especially if they've never been challenged. If they've never been challenged to do that, how do you get them to define their why? And then we use we use a system, but ultimately how did you do that? How did you fell out of a helicopter? You've crashed in helicopters, at the end of the day, your why is what got you back in it. How do you get them to define that?
Right. So I'll use an example. So, one of my first injuries in the military, just got to my first duty station in North Carolina, Fort Bragg, was, decided it'd be a good idea to be a paratrooper. Jumping out of planes. Perfect.
Yeah.
It was my second jump in the 82nd Airborne, jumped out, perfect jump, and I caught a wind from front to rear, and I was hauling ass backwards. Last thing I remember is lowering my equipment. They said I hit my heels, landed on my head, got drugged for 150 feet unconscious, got rushed to the hospital, was in the hospital for a couple of days, whatever. But once I was cleared by the doctors for concussion protocol before all the traumatic brain injury stuff, I was put right back on a jump. And it was a nighttime jump, mass tactical jump. So that means it was 3 C-17s and 3 C-130s all in a line at night, combat equipment, jumping in the dark. But the reason they do that is to get you back out there, to trust your equipment, to trust your training. So you're like, why am I doing this? And it gets instilled in you that, hey, you have to learn. If just because you stumbled, You got to move forward. You got to move past that. And I can relate that to being in the medical field. When you're in the medical field, you're going to have failures all the time. Treating patients, you're going to fail. But as long as they're alive or you did your best for them, you learn from that. You have to take, even it sucks, when it sucks, but you have to learn from it. You have to move forward. You have to be able to turn that, I don't want to call it a negative, but take that situation and turn it into a positive. A good thing I like to say is you stop looking in your rearview mirror. Your windshield's a lot bigger than your rearview mirror. If you look forward instead of looking back all the time, you can move forward and past those situations. And that's where you get your why. And to your point where you said people struggle to get your why do you get out of bed in the morning? There's a lot of different things. If you can't define your why in anything you're doing on a daily basis, how are you going to manage a business? How are you going to try to figure out what you want from customers? How are you going to try to figure out what I wanted from soldiers? If I didn't know the why, you have to figure out the why, because that's going to gravitate, that's going to push you to what you want to do. That's going to be your ultimate goal. If you just want to be why and not do anything, you're just going to sit there and spiral.
So we have to lead people and motivate them regularly to get them to do a job, right? And so, there's different ways that we go about it, and making sure that they have a positive atmosphere, making sure that they have all the things that they need. But like, in none of these circumstances am I potentially leading them to like a deadly situation.
Right.
The things that we do, there's inherent risk to it, but for the most part, like, you're probably not going to die fixing a car today, knock on wood, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So for you, leading people, that why obviously seems very strong, but like, I guess what advice would you give to a business owner that is struggling to motivate their people because they're not really leading them to a potentially deadly situation, but you were? Like, how did you get through that?
Lead by example.
Just go.
Lead by example. Don't be on the pedestal. Don't be the person that do as I say, not as I do. Don't be that person. Lead by example. If you have a task and people are kind of not, they're agreeing with you the task needs to be done, but you can tell there's unsureness on their end, go out there, show them. Go out there and help them. I'm not saying do the whole task for them, but get them started. So that shows that you know how to do the task yourself, that you're capable of it, and you're doing the same thing that you're asking of them. It's easy. It's harder to do the right thing than it is to do the wrong thing. It's easy to do the wrong thing. Nobody's looking. Whatever.
Just don't have to do it, right? No accountability to it.
No accountability. So act as if everybody's watching you all the time.
And I guess so help me understand that too, right? Where I see a lot of business owners fail regularly is in the accountability portion, right? So we have a practice in our companies where we ultimately have a way of defining issues and then regularly figuring out where somebody went wrong so that they don't continuously duplicate that same issue, right? We create a solution for it, then we train people, and then we implement, we implement the solution by training them. And the last part where people typically fail is they don't want to hold people accountable. And so that's where I find that the biggest problem is. When you have a business owner that doesn't want to hold people accountable, then one day he or she either snaps, right? They're like, enough of this crap.
Yep.
Or instead of snapping, they're scared, and then they'll say something and somebody will quit, or they snap and somebody will quit. Right. And so regular accountability is a huge part of business, and so how did you do that? Because again, like, it's a totally different situation to lead in the military than it is to lead a business, right? The inherent risk is totally different.
The risk may be different, but at the end of the day, the military is still a business. It's still a business. You're still accountable for property. You're still accountable for people. You're still accountable for a job to be done, albeit two different things. But if you look at it as a business, you can do that. So there's two methods that I was taught and that I use, right? So you have counselings. We did counseling, so you would say your evaluations, right? For your new employees, or what we did for our junior soldiers, right? You get counseled once a month. Here's what you did good this month. Here's what I want you to work on for next month. And so on. You get that every month. So they can see, hey, I did this, I need to work on this. And it gives them something tangible. These are my goals for the next 30, 60, 90. Okay, then if they mess up within those time frames, we didn't call it a negative counseling. That's what people call them, negative counseling, because they think they did bad. It's not. It's a growth counseling, right? It's a developmental growth counseling. Hey, on X date you did this, and you don't sugarcoat it. You write exactly what happened. You told me to go fuck myself in the corner, Roger. But you write exactly the situation, because then it brings them back. You're like, oh, kind of brings them back. Oh, I really did that. And then you give them a task. I liked when I was putting it on, when I was doing actual paper counselings, my thing I would like to do is have them write essays. I would have them write essays. 1,000-word essays, words don't count twice. So if you used the, counts once. You can use it 1,000 times if you want. Only counts once.
So it ultimately ends up being a 10,000-word essay.
Right. Around, about 3,000 to 4,000.
Yeah.
Right. But then it makes them focus. But you link the essay to the infraction. So, car business. Guy messed up a brake job. They came back and it was messed up, right? I don't know if you can do this in the business world, but you have them write an essay on how to properly do a brake job in 1,000 words, but it only counts. So that one, now you're making them realize the problem. 2, they're retraining themselves. And 3, they're completing another task and they see it tangible. Now you can also use that we would use those if there's so many of those professional development counselings that were in the negative connotation, we can use that for what we call Article 15. Probably which would be for suspension or firing, to put it that way.
But the documentation is kind of the same. Hey, this went wrong.
Yep.
This is the policy. This went wrong. We have to retrain you on this. What happened? Like there's a conversation around it. What happened?
Correct. Exactly. And then so you do that, and then you move on. And then if they keep doing it, then we would do an Article 15 where you can take money from them, you can take rank from them, you can put them on base restriction if they lived in the barracks. There's a lot of things we could do before, if it got to a point, we could separate them from the military, as long as you had the documentation. If you didn't have documentation, it was just word of mouth, you're not getting anywhere with that. Second method is see one, do one, teach one. So if it's a new task that somebody hasn't done before.
Brian, what was that? See what?
See one, do one, teach one.
Okay.
So you have a new employee, again, I'll just keep going back to the car business. Brand new mechanic. He needs help with something. So you teach him how to do it. As the owner or the senior that's out in the shop, you teach them. So they're seeing one being taught to them. Then they do one with that senior watching them, and then they teach the next lowest guy. So they're seeing it done the proper way, they're doing one the proper way, and then they're teaching one the proper way.
Oh man,
so
that's pretty
positive.
sick.
It's positive reinforcement. So again, I'll bring it back to my side, from the medical side. See one, do one, teach one. Right? If you've never done an IV before, right? Okay, so I'm going to watch one, then I'm going to do one, and then I'm going to teach one. So you do that with everything, and then it's that positive reinforcement. So then,
see one, do one, teach one. Man, that is cool.
So as a business owner, whatever business, I don't care if it's underwater basket weaving, if it's your business and you do that see one, do one, teach one method, it's going to be your way. It's going to be done your way. Because they're seeing how you as the owner have created this business, do one, and then you teach it.
Miles, that's incredible information, man. And I can tell you that I've known you for a long time, dude. You're such a great guy, inside and out. You work with me at one of our companies side by side. You help me with all kinds of stuff, and I'm always so appreciative of you and who you are. But even more than that, man, like, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything that you do for all the people around you. You're such a good dude. And I think the last question I would just ask you is like I run into business owners regularly that have, you know, limiting beliefs. You know, we have like Rome and we have Stella, or Wendy, you know, we call her Wendy, you know, so we have Rome, we have Stella, and they work with the business owners to kind of like help just rip that limiting belief out of them.
Yep.
And I guess like what information could you give, or what advice could you give to people that are just crying about like, it's not working, I don't want to try this, you know, I want a different result, but I don't want to try it, like that type of person? What could you tell them, Miles?
Recognize self-doubt in yourself. Recognizing self-doubt and vocalizing that, and talking to other business owners or mentors or Rome and Wendy, talking to them about that and finding a solution. If you live inside your box, you're going to be stuck inside your box. And that goes back to the whole, this is the way we've always done it mentality. And I will tell you, from the military side, the this is how we've always done it mentality has gotten a lot of people killed. So I'm not saying you're going to kill somebody by doing that in the business world.
Yeah,
but you have to think it like that. You have to think that
kill them with kindness.
You can kill them with kindness. But if you want to kill your business,
yeah,
this is the way we've always done it. If you get away from the mentality, dip your toe in, and then go. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. Take a drink of water. Have the faith. Just take the leap of faith, and you have to be vocal about it. You have to be. That's the best thing I can say is just you have to be vocal about it and get out of that self-doubt mindset.
Miles, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For coming by. You know, I appreciate everything you do, man.